Hey there, hi there, ho there. Welcome again to another episode of the Bag Lady Show. Oh, hold on. Oh, did I forget to take my tag off?
You forgot. Hold on.
Okay. Should we keep that in?
Welcome.
Let's just keep it in.
Welcome to the Bag Lady Show. Another fun episode with Ronna and Shonna. Jordan, welcome.
And bags are our thing. Okay, we're selling bags to help a great cause that we're doing to help women around the world with crisis situations and who are in poverty. And since bags and purses are a thing, I thought we'd do a little trivia game.
Okay.
Trivia game. And I'm going to ask you some questions, and we're just going to see how well you do.
Okay.
All right. How much money is spent each year in the U.S. on ladies' purses? A, $250 million, B, $2 billion, or C, $10 billion?
Whoa, I guess I'm going to go with A, $250 million.
Whoa, wrong. Would you believe it's $10 billion women spend in the U.S. on purses?
The U.S. alone?
U.S. alone.
$10 billion.
That's
Okay.
a lot of do-re-mi.
Big industry.
We want you to start spending those billions of dollars on the Bag Lady bags.
To help a cause.
All right. Now we're going to talk about worldwide. How much money is spent worldwide each year on ladies' purses? Is it A, $14 billion, B, $50 billion, or C, $83 billion? What's your answer?
Well, if it was $10 billion alone in the U.S., I'm going to go with the high one, $83 billion. Jeez.
Wrong again.
All right.
But it's still a bunch of bucks. $50 billion worldwide. I mean, it's crazy.
Wow.
All right.
We could probably end world hunger with...
Come on, women. Come on, women. We need to kind of think through this. All right. In what year was the first luxury leather handbag made? Was it A, 1841, B, 1902, or C, 1935?
Luxury handbag?
Luxury leather handbag made.
B, 1902?
I'm sorry. Once again.
I'm not winning a prize at the end of this,
Well,
am I?
that's all right. That's okay. 1841. 1841 was the year the first luxury leather handbag was made. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
All right. On average, how many handbags do women in the U.S. own? A, 5, B, 11, or C, 18?
Oh my goodness. I don't even own 5. I'm going to go
and you're a bag lady. That's not good advertisement for us.
Well, I have grocery bags.
Okay, all right, okay.
Oh, B, 11.
Yay!
11 handbags?
That's a lot, though.
Each. Wow.
That's still a lot.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
This is some good trivia.
Now, here's a good one. However, we own 11 handbags on average, but what percentage of bags do women say they have, but they never use? Is it A, 20%, B, 30%, or C, 65%?
Well, if the average bag owned is 11 each, and you're not changing all that junk out all the time, I'm going to say the 65% of the time they are not using.
Right again.
Woo!
Right again.
All right.
All right, next question. What is the color of purse women buy the most of? Is it A, black, B, brown, or C, red?
A, black.
Ah, you got it again.
Just like the black dress. It goes with everything.
Well, and I got to say, I
Your
have more
favorite.
black purses than anything because, they're going to go with so much. All right, last question. What is the average weight of ladies' handbags? A, 2 pounds, B, 4 pounds, or C, 5.3 pounds?
I'm going to go with D, 12 pounds a bag.
Wait, that's not on my... Have
you felt women's purses?
True.
They're so heavy.
Oh, we have everything but the kitchen sink in them. Actually, it's 5.3 pounds, but I'm going to go with you.
Yeah.
I think it's 11 pounds. In fact, my mom used to have so many back problems. I said, it's because of the purse.
The purse.
Get the stuff out of the purse.
It's
That
kind of
thing
like
must weigh,
the man's wallet in one side of his
you
body,
know,
the purse on one side of the woman. Yeah, it causes all kinds of
back
interest.
problems.
Yes,
Yes, hernias
yes.
and all that. Well, speaking of bags, we want to show you just a couple of bags that we have on our website that you can buy to help our causes for women. And you also get a bag out of it. So, Shauna, why don't you show us a bag that you like in our
Well, my
collection?
favorite bag to buy to help a cause and to change a life that we have is this really pretty.
Beautiful color.
Oh, I love the
Mint,
color.
like mint green.
And I love how big it is, kind of like Mary Poppinsy. I love big bags because I can, fit everything in them. But the cool thing that I like about this one is inside of it is another pull out. So you can keep all your junk in here, your bigger stuff in here. And
I
then
like
if you don't want to take the big one,
that.
well, this one turns into a shoulder purse. So
I
this,
love
the color,
that.
the style, this is one of my favorite bags that we have on the website. And how about you? What's your favorite?
Well, I don't know if it's the most favorite, but I do like this one, and I'll tell you why. It's not too big.
Okay.
It's not too small. And here's something that I really love when a handbag has, and that's a place for the cell phone.
Yes.
You're not digging around. Ring, ring, ring. No, it's right here. Stick it right
As
up.
long as you remember to put it there.
Yeah, true. Yeah, good point. And
Very
it's got
cool.
some other compartments you can put stuff in, and then inside. Uh-oh, sorry. And it's
Oh, yeah.
again, you can put everything you need. It's not too big, not too small.
Nice and organized
Very
in there.
very much like it. Very much like the colors.
Yes,
So there's a couple
yes.
of bags on our website. You need to go shopping.
Thebagladyshow.com. Check out the bags, and every bag you buy helps a cause and changes a life. And then another thing you can help us with as our tribe going forward is like us on Facebook, share us, go to YouTube, sign up, subscribe, go to Apple, Spotify, give us some reviews. And in the meantime, we have an amazing interview coming up.
Amazing interview by a man by the name of Dr. John Morgan. He is the president and founder of People Prosper International, and he's traveled the world looking at poverty. He's really become a student of poverty, and he's come up with an amazing program. And his organization has a very ambitious program to help 1 million people out of poverty
1
by
million.
2030. It's incredible. You're going to enjoy this interview. You're going to get a lot out of it. So sit back, relax, maybe get a pen and pencil. You might want to take a few notes.
Yeah.
Some great stuff here.
Well, hello, John Morgan.
Hello,
Hello,
my friend Ronna. Hello, Shonna. Good to see you, ladies. I've seen a few bag ladies in my lifetime, and you're two of the better looking ones. I have to tell you that.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
we appreciate that. Well, it's great to have you on. We've been friends for a long time, and have a lot of history together in missions and work and things. And so we're really excited about you being on today and what you're going to talk about and what your vision is. And but I'd like to start by just asking you, about your life and early influences and all of that kind of good stuff.
Well, I was born at a very young age,
Close to your mother.
close to my mother. Wanted to be close to my mother. I'm like you. I'm a preacher's kid. I'm a Baptist preacher's kid. So
Oh, that's trouble.
we know some of that life,
Yeah.
And I was raised in El Paso, Texas, where my dad pastored. And that was a big influence on me because our church was a very engaged missions church. I heard missionaries coming through from around the world all my life. But what was really a big influence on me that's affected me now is I grew up in the 60s. That was my childhood. And when we would have family friends or church meeting guests who would be coming into town, our big thing that we would always do, my parents would do, and I go with them, is we would take them across the border to, Texans in those days called it Juarez. I guess Juarez is the proper name, but we call it Juarez. And, in the 60s, the absolute third world,
Mm.
poverty was, as soon as you got off the main paved road, got on the dirt roads, it was horrid.
Mm.
And I can remember as a child that affected me. It just,
Mm.
man, seeing those kids and crippled people on the streets, begging and in just horrible conditions.
Yeah.
It bothered me. It just overwhelmed me. It just seemed like I couldn't quite, shake it. So that was early influence. And then later when I was doing pastoral ministry, I had the privilege of traveling around the world, did a lot of work in Latin America and
Mm.
several other places. Seemed like God just kept putting me in places where I was confronted with poverty, and particularly Christian poverty. And 16 years ago, I went to India with one of the pioneering guys of our generation in the unreached people group movement. His name was Roscoe Brewer, and he used to be the head of missions at Liberty University. And I went with him to train church planters in the unreached people group movement in India. And that experience changed me. I came back from that with this overwhelming burden that there has to be a connection between the number one problem, which is spiritual. People need, salvation in Christ. But their number two problem, it was material.
Right.
And God has the answers to both of those.
Right.
And I came away from that very frustrated and quite actually angry that Christianity is not doing a better job of saying God is the answer to both of these, and his truth is the answer to both of these. And so I felt compelled. I had to be engaged in making that connection between the two and helping God's people, find that right pathway out of poverty.
Hmm. And, I think that that is one of the things that we talk about a lot is that I think it was Richard Stearns who was the head of World Vision. He wrote a book called The Hole in the Gospel. And, uh, evangelical Christians are pretty good. We're pretty good at sharing the gospel as far as the good news of Christ. But where the hole has been is in the social gospel. And you have to put the two together. And I always tell people, my model is when Jesus went and he was preaching about to teach to 5,000 people, but by golly, they were hungry. And so he met a physical need. He found a little boy with a sack lunch. He multiplied it. He fed these people, and then he taught them. And you have to put the two together. And you can't have one without the other. And there's so much in the Bible about ministering to the poor, how the poor are close to God's heart, and how we have so many times missed that. And so you're saying just a really important thing. And so you began to travel doing mission work then after that around the world, and you became really a student of poverty.
Yeah,
And
really made it a big effort to research it and to say what's working, what's not working in the world, why, from both an economics theory point of view, what's going on, but also from a biblical point of view, and then from a practical point of view, what is working best around the world that's actually getting people out of poverty.
right.
And it's all the same thing. Actually, when you come back to it, the Bible had the core principles all along. In evangelical Christianity, we're so focused on evangelism that a lot of times we're not seeing the other great things that are in the scriptures that teach
Right.
us not just about the sweet by and by, but how do you get along in the down and dirty right here and now.
Right.
And God has given us those principles. And I have to say that in the process of development, going to Kenya with you, starting in 2010 with Houses with Hope, that was another very big one because I was engaged in you on the charity side of it. But very quickly, I asked you, could you help me get leaders together in Nairobi, and let's begin training them in these almost like let's do a test.
Right.
And so, Shem Okello brought together a bunch of leaders in Nairobi, and that was in 2012 that we did a major teaching with a room full of top leaders. And some of the results that came out of that meeting have been phenomenal. And so, God used you as another really big stepping stone in this journey that we've been on.
Well, it's just a real privilege to watch what is happening with People Prosper International. And I didn't say that you are the founder and president of People Prosper International, and that's what we're talking about. So let's just go into what is the purpose of PPI, or People Prosper
Yeah,
International?
in short, it's to solve poverty so that people can fund their lives and fund their ministries. That's kind of the short version. Kind of the broader version is we are. I see the emerging global church, which, quite frankly, is the church that's in poverty around the world. There's 2.2 billion Christians in the year in the world. 2.2 billion. Only about 250 million of them live in America.
That's right.
So 2 billion of the Christians in the world are not in America. Most of them, if they are not in poverty themselves, they live in a high poverty community, and they are at least low income.
Hmm.
And you know what that means? They barely have enough funds for their family,
That's right.
much less being able to build a church, build a Christian school, send another missionary around the world. They don't have the resources to really grow their churches or ministries in the kingdom of God. And what the American Christian does not understand is that in the last 100 to 150 years, God has used America as the powerhouse of expanding Christianity around the world. The most big, powerful churches, the center of Christian universities in the world, Christian broadcasting, Christian publishing. You think of all these big entities, and the missions movement ever since the early missionaries were going out of Great Britain around the same time that America was being founded, but very soon missionaries started going from America. During this modern missions movement, America has been the powerhouse of the missions movement. So why was that possible? Is it because we're better people? Is it because we're more spiritual? Well, I've been with other people around the world, and we're not better. We're not more spiritual, but we have the money. Why do we have the money? We have the money because our system was founded on these core principles. It scares me because politically it's beginning to fade, and culturally those principles are fading in our culture. But really, my biggest concern is I am concerned about our culture, but my biggest concern is the kingdom of God, the church in the world. How do we empower this emerging church to change the world? So the big answer, what are we trying to do? We're trying to empower the emerging church to change the world by helping them get these resources.
And you have a pretty aggressive agenda here. By 2030, your goal is to get 1 million people out of poverty.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll actually get them out of poverty, but we want to at least get them empowered with the knowledge and the
Yes.
skills that they're making that movement upward, and within one generation they certainly can. And so yeah, it's we and I was asked the other day by our director of development, why the 1 million? Why the 1 million? And I don't honestly, I guess the answer is because I can't get away from that scope. I don't want to do something small.
Right.
I want it to be global. I said, I'm trying to change Christianity. I'm trying to change Western Christianity, that we approach it differently with them. We teach them empowerment. We keep up the charity, but we add empowerment.
Yes.
Charity without empowerment does not solve poverty. And you have said that too. I mean, you've done enough of it that you realize charity alone is not sufficient. Charity is important.
Yes.
And charity is necessary, but it's not sufficient, because you can do charity generation after generation and it doesn't solve the poverty.
It doesn't solve anything.
And you bring in the empowerment, and in one generation, they don't need your charity.
Amen. Yeah.
Which is kind of sick, because some people are so addicted to giving charity, they don't want the people to become empowered.
Yeah.
So,
And go ahead.
anyway, back to the 1 million, I want to move the needle in Christianity.
Good.
And I think it's possible. I think our model, which is an educational model, how do you deliver knowledge and skills? There's got to be a way to get 1 million people trained in 10 years. There's got to be a way. And I think the methods that we are using are the way to do it. I think it'll work.
Yeah, I do too. I have been with you in Kenya when you have taught this, and also in the United States as well. You know, we live in the Four Corners where we are, as you know, and you used to be. We live near a third world country here. I mean, these are principles that everybody needs.
Yeah.
And but I've seen them specifically at work in Kenya with you in different conferences, and it's amazing. And there's three core principles. If you'd go over those.
Yeah, the first one is the principle of create, and it's that value or money or wealth is actually created when human beings do work. They use the gifts that God has given them, and they do work that creates a product or a service or a solution. And that goes back to Genesis chapter number 1, when God said that he blessed the first man and woman and said, go be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and increase. You know, be people who are fruitful. And that's, everybody thinks, well, that just means having babies. No, it doesn't just mean having babies. You live the fruitful life where the image of God in you, he's the big creator, capital C. We're little creators, small c. So we're created in his image to create more good in the world. That's how we make our living, and that's how we bless other people. And this is the birthplace of money. Money or wealth is not born at a government printing press.
That's right.
What the government prints and what the government coins is only a representation of what human beings are creating. So what we teach the poor, and trust me, and I know you know this, but a lot of people, they have no idea because they live in the West and they're like, well, yeah, duh, we get that. But in high poverty communities everywhere in the world, they don't think that way.
That's right.
They think they're stuck in a role and they just do whatever work, no matter how much value it does or doesn't create. And they feel like, I'm just stuck doing this and I will do this till I die and I probably won't get out of poverty. So what we teach them is to think differently. Think in terms of how could you create more value? Because if you create higher value, then you can bring more income into your life. That's number one. The second one is is the principle of own property. God gave the principle of owning property to his people, beginning with Israel. We call it property rights in legal language or political language, but it means that you can own property legally. And that was established in the Old Testament. In fact, in world history, God's law to Israel was the first time that property rights were codified for a nation. And that's why if you find Jewish people around the world, go look at the Jewish community. Do they tend to be people living in poverty, or do they tend to be people living in prosperity? We don't answer that.
Yeah.
Because these principles were built into their culture.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the world experts on poverty is a man named Hernando de Soto. He's written a book called The Mystery of Capital. His whole book is proving the point that the poor do not legally own property. They don't. In America, we don't think twice about when we get into the right position, we're going to buy our house. Right. We don't, and we don't think twice about the difference that makes to us economically, because it just seems like so second nature to us. But it is absolutely transformational to get the poor out of poverty. Mm-hmm. So we teach people to own the best property they can. If there's barriers in the way, we try to help them, figure out how to solve those barriers. The last one is grow, and that's grow the best business that you can. And the short version of that is, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but scripturally, business done right is righteous. Mm-hmm. So there's this bad rap that religious people give to business, that somehow business is dirty, it's greedy, it's filthy, and people that are in business are just greedy, filthy, dirty, rotten, corrupt, stealing people. That is not true. That is not biblically true. When you do it properly, it is one of the most righteous things you can do. And we give the scriptural evidence on that. And actually, business is the engine of prosperity in a community, in a family, in a community, and in a nation. So we teach people, create the best value you can, own the best property you can, and grow the best business that you can. And you have watched some of our people that we've taught in Kenya.
The light bulb goes on.
Doing all three of those, first time in their lives they've ever thought that way and acted that way. And you're like, we created a monster, and I don't mean a monster in a bad way. I mean, just like they're going crazy with it. Like, oh, man, we're this is amazing how this changes our families. And these same people are building and supporting great ministries on their own.
Yes.
in Kenya.
And John, you brought up a good point, and I'd like to discuss a little of business getting a bad rap. I feel that in America, people have been allowed to separate business from who they say they are in their faith and in their walk. And how do you bridge that gap for people in the West who, oh, it's just business, oh, it's just, and these are people that are running Sunday schools and preach different, people in the community. How do you change that stigma and that idea?
I think it's a core theology that separates the spiritual from the unspiritual, or the sacred and the secular. And the true theology is there's no division. It's
Right.
all God's world.
Mhm.
In Psalm 24, it says, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, its people and all who dwell in it. Guess what? God owns everything. God owns the government. God owns business. God owns education. God owns healthcare. God owns the property. God owns the animals. God owns the air. God owns every human being. So there's not really a division between the sacred and the secular. It's all God. And whatever God has gifted you to do, that's what you need to be doing with your life. And a lot of people have been gifted and called to business.
That's right.
So the Bible says that Abraham is our father by faith. The Bible goes to high measures to make the case that Abraham was a wealthy man,
That's true.
and his wealth did not fall out of heaven by magic from God. He was in the livestock business, and he had a huge livestock business. When you read the details of his livestock business, he worked hard, and his staff, so to speak, they were servants. Actually, it was a whole village of servants that followed him around to run his business. It was a massive business, and it was so massive that when his nephew Lot, was captured by the warlords, he was able to rally 300 fighting men out of his employ to go. I mean, who's got a business with 300 guys working that could go fight if you had to? This guy had a massive business going on. So our father by faith was gifted and called by God to be a very wealthy man.
Mm-hmm.
And so is everybody called to that? No, not everybody's called to that. But we have got to quit calling business dirty, and saying done properly is one of the most righteous things you can do.
They say that the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Dollar question. I'm fixing to ask you the $1 million question. Does it work?
Yeah. So before I answer that question, I have to respond to your proof in the pudding saying.
Oh, okay.
I know that people say the proof is in the pudding, but the actual saying is the proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Oh, I like that.
So when you eat the pudding, it proves whether the
Okay.
pudding was good or not.
I like that.
Sorry,
You're
it's okay.
right.
I'm dorky that way. All right?
I like your dorkiness.
The proof of the pudding is in the eating. So how has our pudding done? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
How does it taste?
Is it delicious?
Is it yummy?
Creamy?
You know what? It's interesting because whenever we go to these high poverty situations, if I find somebody who's not in poverty, they're doing well, like Banice, the lady who runs Jade Collections in Kenya, these fashion stores around Kenya. Well, she has already done what we teach others to do.
That's right. That's right.
And then when we find others that they want to start trying it, they start trying it, and you start seeing changes for the good start happening in their lives. So, I mean, our brother Shem, George, who created the Golden State School, which is amazing in Kenya, now has 380 students. It's all funded by their families paying tuition. And he's even gone to these families to teach them these principles so they can make more money to send their kids to his school. He started that since he went to our training in 2012, the first one I talked about. Madu's story, running multiple businesses. She's bought property.
Mm-hmm.
She bought a car, first woman in the history of her family to own business, own property, own a car, all paid for by her own self without even asking her husband for money. And one of the things that you and I have discovered is that poverty affects women disproportionately.
Yeah.
In the high poverty areas of the world, women essentially lead a slave lifestyle.
Well, and speaking of home ownership, when you were doing one of the seminars in Kenya, one of the ladies said, "Did you know that only 2% of the women in Kenya own property?" I mean, that tells you right there a big problem.
Well, we just talked to another lady from Kenya on one of our shows, and she said that women, they stay in very abusive relationships. They're the ones who go get the water in the morning, the ones who miss out on school because of everything. So yes, it's very disproportionate.
It's very disproportionate. They live basically a slave lifestyle.
Yes.
And so when we have the chance in these places to particularly train women, they are hungry, they are motivated, and man, they work hard to make it happen, and they change their life, they change their kids' lives. And if they are married in a decent marriage, they make their husband's life better too.
Sure.
They elevate the whole culture when they are empowered.
And I want to go back to this, your middle principle, which is own. And this is something like, for instance, in the United States, most of the wealth of the United States is in our houses. It's the equity that we have in our homes.
Yeah,
and
true.
what do you do with that? Well, then when you want to start a business, what do? Then you go to the equity that's in your house to be able to start that business. That's why owning is so important. Is that not correct?
That's absolutely correct. 75% of small business in the U.S. are started by taking out loans against their houses.
And the people that we know in Kenya, for instance, who have done the same thing. One of our leaders over there, his name was Shim Okello, and he was renting for 18, 20 years, something like that. And he grabbed hold of these principles. He told his wife about it, and one day he wakes up on a Saturday morning and all the furniture's gone out of their house, and she says, "We're not paying rent anymore."
When he tells that story, he has the crowd rolling in the aisles. It's hilarious. The backstory of it, they had bought land and they were building a house. And in his mind, it wasn't quite ready to move into. In her mind, I'm not waiting any longer. I'm moving in. And so he wakes up on a Saturday morning. Nobody's in the house and there's no furniture in the house. It was, but so here, let's go back to the Nairobi training in 2012. When that was over, Shem came up to me and he was very emotional. And he said, "How come nobody has ever taught us this before?" And he was a little angry.
Sure. Sure. And he has more resources than most of the people in Kenya too. And so even for somebody like him to have not been taught that, I'm sure there's a lot of anger that comes up.
Which is a big point, because a lot of the people that we train are not the poorest of the poor. They're that next, what they would consider more middle class, but by world standards are still low income.
Yes.
And they are the ones that bring up that lower class because they can train them and be examples of them. But back to that 2012 training, Shem also came up to me and said, "I never knew that you should own your house and not rent." And within a year, I got an email from him saying, "I bought a piece of property, I'm building a house, and I'll have it paid off in 5 years." And I wrote him back and said, "My house will not be paid off in 5 years." Way to go. Way to go.
And you know what else he did? He then used the equity that he had in his home and he built a high-rise apartment building.
Yeah. No, last time I was there, he took me on a tour of all that. And it's just like, man, I mean, he gets it. He gets it. And the people around him are watching it and they're getting it.
And for, I don't know, years, all of my lifetime, whether it's the US government, the United Nations, or the church, we have been erroneously caught in this cycle of charity. Handouts from our government to other governments, handouts to people when you go on a mission trip, handouts to people in the United States that are living in poverty. Why handouts do not work? So we're talking about a new paradigm shift here, aren't we?
Yeah. Look, there is good charity. The Bible talks about good charity, and good charity usually goes to somebody who's pretty desperate and they have a pretty immediate need.
Yeah, an emergency situation. There's a tsunami.
Yeah.
there's a drought. That's different.
Sure. But when it becomes a normalized relationship where they expect that's my living is now for the rest of my life is coming from that, and there's no empowerment for them to step up on their own feet and know how to do it, then it creates a culture of passivity, a culture of dependence, and an overall culture of corruption. So,
Mhm.
in every high poverty community in the world, everyone, whether it's an inner city in America or I probably shouldn't say it, but a reservation, or a slum in Cairo or the Kibera slum or
Mhm.
the nation of Haiti is the prime example. In
Right.
any high poverty, generation after generation, high poverty community, corruption at the top is massive because their whole gig is siphoning off international aid and nonprofit charity. And at the individual level, you create that spirit of dependence and really entitlement that is, to me, it's dehumanizing
Yes.
because it takes away your thinking that I'm created in God's image and God has given me special abilities and talents, and I need to go put these to work the way God's called me to. You're not living up to your divine potential.
And this dehumanizing thing, and I've seen this so much, and I feel so sorry for people that have to beg
Yeah,
for help, or they're dependent on you bringing that food or bringing the clothes or bringing the medical supplies. That's not how God intended for us to live, to be dependent on people. He empowered us. He gave us everything that we needed with our body, our minds, our soul, the economy, the earth, to be able to, as you said at the beginning, be fruitful.
yeah,
And how do people have come up to me and begged for different things, and my heart goes out to them, uh because I would hate to have to wake up every day and say my family's not going to eat unless I beg, borrow, steal, or whatever. And talk about enslavement.
yeah, yeah. It
Talk
really,
about enslavement.
it really is.
Now, how can people learn more about PPI, People Prosper International?
Yeah. So our website is peopleprosper.org. Pretty simple. Peopleprosper.org. And then we have a Facebook page that is People Prosper International. So that's the easiest way to find us.
And John, you're doing these conferences not only around the world, but also in the United States as well. And you're coming up with an online university as well, correct?
Yeah, we're creating People Prosper University, which we will be teaching all the classes online. So anybody anywhere can watch them, and then it'll wherever we go do it live around the world, they can get online and reinforce their learning on it. Excited about that. We are also in the process of developing school curricula for grade school, middle school, and what most places around the world they call it secondary school. We call it high school, but because you've seen what I've seen, and that is wherever you go in the world and you see missions work or Christians work, they all have Christian schools.
Sure.
Every church has a Christian school.
Mhm.
Most orphanages have a Christian school. Most missions have Christian schools. There's thousands of them around the world. And my feeling, my thought is that man, it's going to be so easy. Just show it to them. Say, do you want it? And we'll help get your teachers trained in it. I'm really excited to get it in George Kianga's school
Mhm.
in Western Africa. They're going to be our first target school. I just got back from Guatemala with some people that they have a school of 200 kids and was showing the concepts, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, how fast can you get here?"
Yeah.
So yeah,
And if you teach children, like you say, within one generation, they get it.
oh,
That
oh,
talk about a generational change. When you
no,
get into the
yeah,
schools
no.
and you teach the children and the youth these concepts, I mean, that's where the big change occurs then with the next generation.
Well, when you talk about
Go ahead.
what we're doing is trying to change culture.
That's right.
If you're trying to change culture, you really got to start with the next generation.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Most of the adults you teach it have a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
It's hard to change a culture
Yeah.
at the adult level. We
Cultures.
we do it some, but yeah, getting those kids is big. And then one of the next big targets is working with you and doing women's global impact
Yeah.
conferences with and trying to impact as many women around the world as we can with this. I mean, there's another powerhouse of potential.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I wanted to bring up with the Bag Lady show. You know, one of the things that we're going to be doing is helping fund education for women, and that parlays into a new initiative that we have called Women's Global Impact, and we're going to be offering the People Prosper International Education University online as well, making that available to women. And we're very, very excited about that. And because, as you know, in these countries, the reason why, a lot of the reasons why these countries are third world countries is because they're not utilizing the women. It's like using half of your army.
Well, yeah, and you could even say to some degree that happens in, you know, Western culture. I mean, it's an epidemic of changing the way we view women, the way that, you know.
And you change and you elevate women, and you elevate the whole society.
The true spirit of Christianity is that every human being is created in the image of God,
Yes.
and every human being should maximize their potential and their calling. Period.
That's right.
Well, that's empowering to everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you're not allowing women to walk in that, you got a problem. If you're not allowing an ethnic group to walk in that, you got a problem. If you're not even reaching out to other religions, you know, what I think is interesting is particularly in Kenya, they bring their Muslim neighbors,
Mhm.
and their Muslim neighbors get fired up with this stuff, and they're so thankful to their Christian neighbors for inviting them to it. So it's improved their relationships. I hope it'll, you know, help towards evangelism with them in the future, but it has really improved their relationships with their neighbors. But God's principles blesses everybody who will live them.
Yeah, that's right. We'll put them.
Everybody has the image of God, even a non-believer.
Yeah.
And they don't have yet the redemption of the Spirit of God, but they have the image of God, and that's what makes the world work. And we're tapping into what God's doing.
Yeah.
So let me interview Shonna for a minute. Can I do that?
Yes.
Oh man, what is going on here?
First of all, let's see. Is it you or is it your mom that has to go up and stay on top of the tire shop every year?
I usually give that to her.
That's usually my job. She'll come up and stay a couple nights here and there.
So how is it that every year when you do it, it's the worst weather of the year?
John, I'm glad that you noticed that it's not that fun. It is incredibly. Every year I come down and I say I'm never doing that again.
Yeah. Well, bless you for it. So I really want to ask you is because I know that you're from the very first time you went to Kenya, and you really kind of were instrumental in really hooking your mom into really being engaged in the issues of poverty in Africa. I assume you got into it the way we almost all of us get into it. We all get into it first on the charity side. I did. I got my first, gig at trying to help people was just how do I give them as much stuff as I can, and how do I raise as much to give them, and so that's kind of what I did. So I know you've done some of that. When you kind of hear the other side of that, which is you got to have empowerment also, so that they can create what they need and become independent. What are your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree more. And we see it in, there's a seamstress school in Kenya that we've helped support. And those girls are excited. They're on fire. They're creating something with their hands that they can then sell and show off. And it provides money for their children to go to school. They, in Kenya, you have to pay to go to school across the board, no matter what. And you feel it. You feel that it's like, oh, thank goodness, finally, it's not these Americans coming over with their little handouts and then leaving us high and dry to continue with the mess that they came here seeing. It's not just let's take a picture and look good and get on back to America. Let's come back. Let's help with all of this. So yeah, it's a necessity. Otherwise, everything else, like my mom finally realized, you can give them a home, but then how are they going to make money to have food, to provide clothing, to go to school, for water? So it makes so much sense.
Yeah, good. Well, I mean, obviously, it's my thing. It moves me. I'm passionate about it. I see the amazing potential in the
Mm,
church around the world if it becomes resource to fund its ministries and everything God will call it to do. Um, yeah, I call the Christian poor around the world the sleeping giant. They are the sleeping giant that, with resource, they will change the world. American Christianity is not going to change the world in this next go round. It's going to be the other 2 billion Christians in the world.
too
They're
bad.
going to do it as they become empowered. And doesn't mean that American Christianity is not relevant. It is relevant. We're very important to the mix. But this is the sleeping giant.
It really is. And the epicenter of Christianity is Africa. So, the potential there to then mushroom out to also other parts of the world, I think is huge as well. And as you know, man, they are hungry for this stuff. And well, John, I'm just very grateful to have met you many years ago, and then about 10 years ago, well, 8 years ago, I was in Walmart, minding my own business on the cookie aisle. And all of a sudden, kabam! And somebody just rams into my car.
What a jerk.
I looked up and John Morgan. Well, we got to talking about we sit there for a long time talking about mission work and
Eating
finally-
cookies together in the aisle.
yeah, Oreos. By the way, this guy's a great cook.
Oh,
Yeah, and ended up then you guys started going to Kenya, and we've developed a ministry now, a ministry partnership with Women's Global Impact, where we're going to be sharing the principles of People Prosper International. Very, very excited about that. I want to share, because it kind of fits in to one of our messages for the Bag Lady Show. One of my favorite stories about you and your family.
Okay.
You were on a vacation to Mexico, I believe, and one day you guys were out at the beach or fishing or something, and you saw people going in and out of stores, and they came out with cakes and things. And tell us a little bit about that. I love this story.
Yeah, and we were wondering, why is everybody getting cakes today? And we went and asked, and it was Mexican Mother's Day. It wasn't. I think their date for it, or is it the same as U.S.? I don't remember if it was the same. It possibly was, but I think their date was a little different. Well, we had been. There's a fishing village on a beach, and they're very poor. They live in these grubby little shacks, bunch of little kids in there. Kids don't go to school. That's their level of poverty. And so we decided, with our family, let's go buy some cakes and some pop and some ice and take it to them so they can have a Mother's Day party. So anyway, we did, and they were very sweet, very excited. The kids were the kids were over the moon, surrounding us and jumping up and down and laughing, and they loved it, and they wanted to invite us into their huts, and dirt floor huts, and what's interesting, as poor as people are, they figure out how to have a TV. So inside some of these huts, there's a little TV powered by a car battery that they have plugged, and I don't know how they charge that car battery, but they're very. And here's what's interesting: they were very proud. They wanted to show it to us, and
Mhm.
for their standard, it was all neat, it was all picked up, and it was clean.
Mhm.
You come outside, it's all dirt and all that kind of stuff. Well, they're the guys in the fishing village that day. They're net fishermen, and they had netted a school of manta ray
Mm.
and brought them in and cleaned it out, got the meat from them, and they were cooking manta ray stew. And they asked us if we would like some, and the answer in those situations is always yes,
yeah.
Mhm.
whether you want to or not. But
Right.
it actually smelled good, and we're like, yeah, we'll give it a try. And the meat looked like and tasted like beef. It was fantastic.
Huh.
But I look back on that and I think, well, that was an act of charity, not really empowerment. I wish I had the ability with that same group of people to do both the charity act, but also help with the empowerment act. But I think probably the greatest of that whole thing was our kids. We got back from our trip, and we had spent a lot of times fishing on the ocean and really having a blast. but the kids all said that was the highlight, going in and serving people that were in need. So it was good.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted you to share the story was because that's one of our biggest messages is to serve mankind, to crush it with compassion and to give back. And the biggest thing that we see so much in America, we have so much, but there's so much unhappiness and there's so much a lack of purpose. And that's one of the things that we want to inspire women and people that listen to our show is to find purpose, find out what your gifts are, and and use them to help other people. And then that translates to purpose, does it not?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it really does. If you're not living for a transcendent purpose, that means it doesn't serve you, it serves others.
Mhm.
That means it's for something higher than just what happens in this
Mm.
earth. And it means it lasts beyond your lifetime. If you're not doing something transcendent, you are not living in your divine purpose. And if you're not living in your divine purpose, you're not going to find the full fulfillment that God designed you for. So
That is awesome. Boy, you
Yeah.
said that in a nutshell. Do
Yeah.
you have any parting words?
Well, I want to know what your favorite meal to cook is.
man, I love to barbecue meats on my pit boss. We got a bunch of family coming in this weekend, and I'll smoke a brisket. So I really like that. I like to do meats. I really like to do Mexican food. My enchiladas.
Ooh.
I do New Mexico red style enchiladas, and I'm
Mm,
telling you, in Texas you can't get it because
no,
they do this Tex-Mex
Tex
nonsense.
Mex.
It's horrid. It is horrid, and their enchiladas are horrid. This state is not
Tex-Mex.
worthy of my enchiladas. So I like doing seafood. My favorite, yeah, it would be some kind of meat, some kind of enchilada, and some kind of seafood.
Yum,
Yeah,
yum. I'm hungry
I'm
now.
real
Ooh.
hungry.
Yeah,
Well, muchas gracias. Go to
yeah,
peopleprosper.org. We're going to have you back, and we're looking forward to all the cool things that's going to happen.
I have a new associate that's coming on staff with us that you guys know, and we will be announcing him soon. And when he joins us, maybe we can both jump in with you.
That'll be
I think
awesome.
we could have
congrats.
a
That'll
time.
be
Tell
fun.
your family we said hello from New Mexico.
Yep.
We miss you guys, and God bless.
Thank you very much. Same to you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Don.
Bye.
My goodness, another great interview. I
So
mean,
much good information.
John Morgan is a genius, and his principles of create, own, and grow, amazing, amazing. And I've seen it at work in the US and in other countries in Africa and Kenya. So, great interview. And there's also something that I love that he does with his kids, his children. And every time when they were growing up at home, every time they would leave to go to church or school or anything like that, he would always say, "Go forth and conquer." And I just thought that was really,
Seize the day.
that's right. I thought that was
Cool.
great. And that's what we want us all to do. Go forth and
That's right.
conquer. And great principles to do that with. Want to give you all another famous quote of the day, this time by a famous Spanish painter. I'm sure you all have heard of him, Pablo Picasso. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. And we want to encourage all of you to do that. Find your gift, enjoy it, give it away to help people. And we're doing that to a lot of women around the world.
And it's interesting because in the giving, I swear I receive even
We
more
always get
than
more.
the gift.
Always more. So buy a bag, help a cause, change a life. And on our way out tonight, we have a really special treat, a traditional drumming group from Kenya, Africa. You're going to enjoy this. And we hope to see you next Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, for another episode of the Bag Lady Show.